Rooted in resilience, inspired by nature, powered by movement. The podcasts where healing meets empowerment. Let's rise and thrive together. And now, here are your hosts, Scott and Melissa.
Hello, everybody. Welcome into Rise and Thrive, a podcast by Vital Edge Wellness Coaching. I'm here with my co-host, Melissa. I'm Scott Sadler, and we have a very special guest today, Jean, who we're going to introduce in a moment. But first, Melissa's going to lead us through a mindful moment, as we always do.
So we're going to sit back wherever you're at. So if you are driving or mobile, you can keep your eyes open, please. But otherwise, let's take a big sigh. And when that big sigh comes, I'm going to ask you not to sigh from the top of your chest, not to inhale from the top of your chest, but go down into your belly with me and inhale. And then just let it out. And you're welcome, if you're in a place to do so, to close the eyes or just keep a soft gaze open. And relax the jaw and soften the tongue. I want to bring a simple awareness today in this moment. I want you to bring your awareness to the space below your rib cage. And notice whatever sensation of movement is there as you breathe in and out. And then with your gentle influence to that space, to that breath, your breath, feel and sense the breath moving out from that space in all directions. The front, the sides, the back, up to the crown of the head and down to the soles of the feet. And we're just going to hang out there together for a few moments, just breathing in that space, feeling that energy, that breath, your breath flowing in all those directions, in and out. And some of you may connect to know that the space is the solar plexus, associated with the color of yellow. And this vibrant connection to our innate capacity to heal, ability to shine our light and step forth into our authenticity and our truth. And so take another big sigh with me from that space. When that sigh comes out, you're welcome to open your eyes. I just have to say that someone we're going to be speaking with today, I think, is shining their light very bright, and we want to share it with you today.
Thank you very much. That was great. Good. Jean, welcome to the show.
Thank you.
Yeah, glad to have you here. Jean is a people experience innovator, and she has been at the heart of Compass Senior Living's culture journey, serving as both leader and protector of the True North culture and Warm Welcome Initiative. And I love that Warm Welcome Initiative concept with over 3 decades of experience spanning both not-for-profit and for-profit healthcare organizations. And she brings a depth of wisdom and steadfast commitment to enhancing the experience of elders, families, and team members alike. Jean is a passionate advocate for power of caring, championing the belief that caring is what makes us human, which is such a great fit for Vital Edge Wellness Coaching in our podcast. She is a certified Eden alternative educator and has a validation practitioner. She is dedicated to uplifting individuals living with memory loss and empowering care partners and families with tools to honor each other's person's dignity and story. And this hits home for me, having a family member with Alzheimer's and also with Melissa, who has a family member with dementia. And this is a common thread in our families, and it's rough at times. And I was fortunate enough to meet Jean through some inquiry on some other business through Scott Sadler Coaching, and we got to talking, and I felt like we're old souls that we connected. And so I immediately sprung this podcast on her, and she happily said yes. And so we'd like to learn more about Jean and her story. And I understand you have a birthday coming up in December, and it's just a vibrant woman who is doing really good things in the world. Jean,
Shining her light.
shining your light. And that's what we're asking people to do. So thanks for being here today. And we really appreciate you taking the time out of your busy day as an executive to come on the show.
It's my pleasure. Thank you for inviting me.
Yeah. Jean, tell us a little bit about your life story. And, I know that's like, oh my gosh, it's 3 hours, but give us some highlights about how you came to this place of passion around aging population and your journey, and how you kind of landed where you are as this amazing people innovator with Compass.
Yeah. So, my son actually was a nursing home administrator in the early 1990s when he got out of the U of O, thought he was going to be an Olympic athlete, I think, but he ended up being a nursing home administrator at age 26. And at that time, there was no assisted living in the country, but he partnered with group of people to start building assisted livings in Oregon. Assisted living started in Oregon. So, and they would build it and it would come. And one day I was working at Sacred Heart Hospital in Eugene. And one day my son called me because by that time I had worked at Sacred Heart, and then I moved to Nevada to work at a hospital here. But he called me and he said, "Mom, you need to come back to Oregon." It's like, I'm not doing anything wrong. Honestly, I'm not. And he said, "You're going to be a grandmother." So my first grandson was born, and he invited me into senior housing to work with them. I knew nothing about senior housing, older people. I didn't know anything about it, but he actually started his own company. He left the one he was in, started his own company in 2002. And that's when he brought me in to work with him, even though I knew nothing. He said Napoleon Hill said there's a good woman behind every man. And he said I was that woman.
No, that's so sweet.
So I knew nothing about this. And one day I was going to work and there was an NPR broadcast on. But you've probably done this. You stop your car and you just listen. That's what I did. And it was Dr. Bill Thomas, who's the founder of the Eden Alternative. And he was talking about what he had learned and done some study on as a young doctor, graduate from Harvard. He was asked to be a director in a nursing home. And he went there and he just sat for 2 or 3 days and just watched. And he realized that elder people are dying not because of physical illness, but they were dying from loneliness, helplessness, and boredom. And so he took those concepts and he actually applied the antidote to those things in another nursing home and really got in New York, really got accolades for what he had done. And he did that, I think it was the early 90s, but it was about 2002 when I heard him. So I told Dennis, I want to learn more. So I went and I took a class, a 3-day course on that to learn about it. And later I asked to go to New York and learn directly from Dr. Bill Thomas and become certified, which I did. So that was my first intro into it, and learning and recognizing that our elders, they were dying of loneliness, helplessness, and boredom, and there had to be an antidote to that. And so I learned from him that the antidote for loneliness, of course, is connection. And he found elders were not having connection. The antidote for, I have to get a drink.
You go right ahead.
The antidote for helplessness is allowing them the opportunity to not only receive care, but to give care. That's really important. We've really been working with that with our team members because this started the whole concept of person-directed care. But over the years, I realized that what we do, we want to take care of people, but we're not allowing them to reciprocate that. And that's where we gain our joy in caregiving. And the antidote to boredom is spontaneity. So we may be caring for people, but we can get up and dance with them at any time, or play a game with them, or have some spontaneous moments for them. So for a few years, I've trained hundreds of people on the person-directed care model, which is Eden Alternative. Then one day in Eugene, Oregon, the state called us and said, there is a building here that we're taking it away from the owner because there's abuse happening from the people that own it. And would you be willing to take on this building? And again, I'm still kind of a baby in learning about how to do things with people that are living in nursing homes or in assisted livings like we had. So what's happening, this was owned by a person from another country, and he had put barbed wire around the outside so that people could get out. And he had taken people that were homeless off the streets, and had some mental illness there as well as dementia. So I called, and it was only 19 units. It was a small building. So I called a friend I knew down in Roseburg that was an assistant administrator. And I said, would you like to be an administrator? Could you come up? I'm going at 6:00 tonight to visit. And so she drove up, and we went to the building to see if we wanted it. So we opened the door and walked in, and the first thing we felt was just urine and horrible smells and people yelling and crying. There was a little lady sitting by the front door, and she had a little pill holder on the table, and the pills were on the floor. And Tammy was the woman I brought up. She picked it up, kind of fixed it. We were looking, we couldn't find any team members in the building. So we stepped outside, and there were some team members that were having a smoke, and they saw us, and they said, oh, are you the ones that are going to take over the building? And I said, no, we don't know. We don't know. And one of them said, well, if you do, we have one person there in the building that you need to get rid of because she digs in the garbage. She's pooping everywhere. You just got to get rid of her. So Tammy and I took a big breath. We actually were holding hands, walking through the building, walking back, and we saw a little woman walking toward us, and she was like going, whoa, 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 whoa. And she was like, her hair was bad. Her fingernails were black, covered with feces, and it was horrible. When she started coming toward us, and then other people were yelling, like, shut up, shut up. It was horrifying, absolutely horrifying. So, but Tammy and I walked outside, and I couldn't even look at her. I said, Tammy, I'm so sorry that I even suggested you coming. I know this isn't for you. Tammy is a little, like 5 foot tall woman. And I looked at her, and she was crying, and she said, no, they need me. I want to do this. They need me. And so we began the journey of learning how to work with people that have dementia. So in the meantime, we did work with the state to get mental illness out and everything. And it was down to we had about 8 residents by the time we were able to get the demographic memory care. And so as we struggled with that, we were doing everything. I knew nothing about dementia, nothing. So we were reading books. We were trying to figure out what to do. And it was a small group. And I found this book called Validation Breakthrough from a woman in Ohio. And we were reading these together as a team. We're reading the book. And it was talking about how to validate people that have dementia. And it was really innovative stuff that we hadn't heard before. And so we were all excited. We were trying to use it by using the book. And then one day we got a phone call. The front desk answered the phone, and it was a man that said, I've been calling around trying to find a community with memory care that my mom could come to and do some filming there. And she said, well, who's your mom? And he said, it's Naomi File. And that was a book that we had been reading. So she didn't ask me or anyone. She said, yes, yes, yes. So we were so excited.
Yeah.
And so Naomi was in Ohio, but her son was a professor at the University of Oregon and lived in Eugene. So she came and worked with us for 6 months.
Wow.
Filming. When she walked in, I was like, it's like she's a rock star. And so when I started saying, oh my gosh, she talked to her husband was the one filming. And she said, have a seat over here, Jane, because I think we're about to make a commercial.
That's cool.
So for 6 months, we worked with her. And from her, I learned so much. That little woman that I talked about, when Tammy went back in the community, she gravitated to her. She hugged her. She touched her and took her in, with some team, took her into the shower and held her face. And she was still going, woo, and showered her and bathed her for every day for 20 days. She did that. We also analyzed her medications, and she was on all psychotropic medications. She didn't need all that. She had no dentures or teeth, so they were not even feeding her. They were giving her Ensure, which, makes you go to the bathroom all the time. So at the end of 20 days, she was down to 2 medications, and one was thyroid med, and one was some other med, but not on any psychotropic meds. Wow. It made her worse. So through this, we learned the power of touch. We were able to, over the 6 months, even though she could not talk, we were able to have at her. She was there for 3 years after that. And she was able at the end to say, I love you. It was like, I love you. That's about all she could say. But what we learned is that music was something that really could inspire her. So when Naomi taught us to mirror, so she would be walking and doing this. So we walked next to her and then she would look at us. And so we made a connection. We also realized when people came in to do, especially gospel songs, she couldn't talk, but she was right in rhythm. So then we started walking with her and singing, you are my sunshine. And she would sing, and we'd sing, and she'd walk with us. So she was our project. But we not only learned that, we learned so much about therapeutic touch, the power of touch. If people want to go home, I want to go home, instead of have the cookie or to redirect them, we say, tell us about your home. Tell us what you miss about your home, because deep down they know. We really learned that they are full, capable human beings that really can connect if we know how to make that connection. One of my most interesting persons was a man who was very sweet, just a sweet, kind person. And all of a sudden one day he started yelling out, Dolly, Dolly, Dolly. And the care partner took his hand and say, let's go have a cookie. And he just started screaming more. And then she said, oh, she'll be back soon. And then he really started screaming. And I happened to be there. It was a building actually in Indiana. I happened to be there and went over and just held his hand. And I said, you're looking for Dolly? And he said, yes, and he started calling again. So I just started walking with him and asking, what color are her eyes? What do you love most about her? And talked with her. And finally we sat down and I did what's called the lover's touch, where you touch on the jaw and kind of lift up like for a kiss, and started saying what you miss most about her. And he said, I really miss her. She's been gone a long, long time, and she'd been gone for 20 years. So he was trying to say, I miss my wife. And we were trying to redirect or do the things that we think were the right things to do. So there's so many, many stories I could tell you about how beautiful when you use the power. First of all, as Dr. Thomas said, they are full, capable human beings and they can direct their lives. And then secondly, what I learned from Naomi is how powerful it is to validate the person and help them really recognize if there is a connection, because Naomi says that if they don't have connection, they will not die in peace.
Yeah.
And so that's one of the most important things. So, and I was telling Scott about how intuitive I think they are when they have dementia, because it's more their limbic brain. It's not their thinking brain. So they're so intuitive to us and to our touch and to our times that we're with them. They know that we love them, and I believe them if there's somebody they don't like. I know that because they know better than us. So I had the opportunity with Naomi to go to Zurich, Switzerland. There was an international gathering. In Europe, she's very popular. So I went as the American person who was there. And that was amazing. She took me into a German nursing home where I didn't speak German and had me validate someone without even knowing how to speak.
Wow.
And I was able to make that connection. So it's been just a beautiful, beautiful journey. I just love what I've learned from both of them. And there's a lot of other really great people out there that do dementia training, but for me, these two, which are not well known actually in the industry, people don't talk about them a lot, really makes me recognize how not only our connection with them, but what they can do for us to make us better human beings as well. That's why we don't call our team members caregivers; we call them care partners because it's a reciprocative thing.
Yeah.
Let them massage your hands when you're putting on lotion. Let them massage you. Let them love you. Yeah.
Jean, I'm struck by the synchronicities of how this all fell into place for you.
Yeah.
What kind of work did you do at Sacred Heart?
I was actually business services director there.
Okay.
And the same thing when I moved to Vegas. So I managed, the registration folks and the billing people and some of the medical records too.
Okay.
Mhm.
And then you were guided back to Eugene. Go Ducks, by the way. Go Ducks.
Right.
And your son's journey, I'm interested in that too, maybe for another podcast, because that sounds very interesting too. Going from, becoming an athlete to, building senior living in the right way. Our conversation, I got all excited with Jean because she was talking about the things that I aspire my corporate clients to become, which is this true north mentality, which is we're going to build this company on our values, and we're going to live those values. And it's rare, so rare that you're doing this. And then on top of it, you've got this amazing synchronistic training that you heard about on NPR and Stop the Car. And then the Naomi finds you and comes. I just find all of this like completely guided.
Yeah.
And I guess it's a statement more than the question. I'm sure you feel the same way, but I'm really struck by how it was the destined journey here for you, for the people you serve, for the people who are your partners, your care partners. It's just an amazing example of what can happen if we're listening to our inner self and we're following the path and not second guessing. You had a lot of opportunity to say, I don't know anything about that. And you probably should find someone else. And you just stayed with it.
Mhm.
So many people have benefited from it, including yourself.
I have a daughter that lives in New York that is an early childhood educator and has written a book, Illuminating Care. And we've been talking for 20 years as she's been writing that book, how much that it's not only care for elders, it's care for the world. We feel like if you illuminate care, that it could be what changes the world, which we hope will happen someday. But so I'd gone with her to her conferences. She was just in one in Canada. So she goes to keynotes and talks about her book and has a big following. But it's very similar. It's that children are full, capable human beings and validating them, and that the genesis of care begins there. And then how the arc of life, it's been really a beautiful journey with her too. And so we've had a lot of talk about it with Dennis. I think what called him to this work, I think he thought it was just going to be a one-time job there, but what really impacted him were the care partners because they're entry-level people. And he recognized early on that if we care for them, they will care for the elders. So that's why we make sure that we have these core values and that we of goodness, loyalty, faith, and fun. We have them and we live by them because that's the first step there to make sure that the caregivers feel safe, that they feel like they belong, that they feel like they're making a difference, and they are. So we have good insurance for them. We really take care of them because if we do, they will take care of the elders. So, and really in this climate right now, staffing is really hard for us. So sometimes we talk about how it's more important to recruit team members that will stay than it is to try to fill the building with elders. That's important too, but we really need those. I think that's where his heart, why his heart has stayed in this business ever since he was 26 years old.
Well, and your beautiful ability to bring this together and empower those partners to feel equipped to be able to be with those and be present with those struggling. And yeah, as Scott shared, we both have family members, and I'm watching my parents as we just recently moved them into assisted living, and we're navigating having moved my parents from their house now into a little box.
Yeah.
And they're living the same way. So when I do walk in there, overall a quiet atmosphere. There's a little hustle and bustle in the kitchen area, in the dining room, because I usually go around dinner time. Sometimes I pop in before dinner, around that hour window. But when I walk down the halls, it's just quiet. Everybody's in their rooms. And I know part of that is, and then I hear from others about different places, and I'm like, oh, I want to get my parents involved in playing a game and
Socially.
social, and they weren't social before, so it's a stretch for them. So they're still kind of getting, as my mom said Monday night, she's like, I'm still getting used to this place. I'm still getting used to what's here and what she can do and not do, and how she's still primarily the caregiver for my dad. Right. So I just appreciate the synchronicity of Scott meeting you and sharing, because you're already helping me in how I responded to my parents when I went to visit. And my dad is very much in the throes of dementia right now. So being able to navigate that. And so I just appreciate you and what you're doing and what your son and everything that you're building. I want to get the message out there. That's part of why I was like so glad Scott had your podcast. We want to share. We want to help people realize, because you're right. Not a lot is known. I'm handling my parents' medical stuff, and we even had a medical provider say that their whole medical system, they said, we don't do dementia well.
Wow.
And so
that's not very confident, inspiring.
So I'm trying to navigate what that looks like and trying to make it as easeful for my parents, but I want them to have quality of life, not just put in a little box and survive, So I appreciate you, and I want to hear more about how you are bringing this energy to your life. And as Scott shared, your birthday's coming up, and you shared with us. I want to emulate your path of staying young and vibrant and alive and embracing the aging process and, living as well as we can to support our bodies to thrive, so that we can help ourselves if we get to that stage of having those different conditions, or help others more, because we're seeing more and more. I work with nutritional therapy and all that, and I'm seeing more and more people. It's the family members of dementia and Alzheimer's is just very common now. It's just,
yeah.
Our podcast was kind of born from that perspective of holistic care for yourself, body movement, mindfulness, nutrition, getting yourself coached in the areas where you need to improve, not just ignore them. Yeah, being in nature, all of these things. And so that's another component that I was impressed with you about, that we connected on when we met, was, you're out hiking red rocks at 80 years old, and you're traveling places and doing things. And you're a model for me. You're a model for a lot of people, I'm sure, that can't always be. I know there's underlying conditions, of course, but what do you do what have you done, or what do you continue to do to just show up like this every day and be that spunky, energetic self?
I'm not an athlete. I've never been an athlete. I have athletic children, and my husband was athletic too. But I'm a walker, and I'm a stretch, and I stretch, and I think for me, it's a lot of it is nature is so important to me. That's where my place is, that I feel safe, even in the desert of Nevada. But I think even more than that probably is just my attitude about life, I think, we can do all these physical things, and if we're still whining and complaining about maybe having a sore foot or whatever it is. So, I was lucky to have a dad that was very optimistic and reading to me from Power Positive Thinking when I was 5. I didn't know that. Yeah, it was and Hemingway, and he's reading to me when I'm little, and I grow up, and I thought my dad was saying that, but someone wrote that a long time. But he told, so there was always, he told me I could do anything I want. I'm the oldest of 6 children. And so I knew that and to encourage during hard times. Once we were having a hard time as a kid, and he said, "Oh, let's go dig some dandelions and tell people we're so poor that we had dandelions and how we got through it." And it's like, little would he know that today in Whole Foods, it costs a little bit for dandelions.
Yeah.
But that type of thing is hard things happen. And of course, it doesn't feel good, but it's what you learn from going through it. And I think that's probably my dad's, and I was the first child, so I got more of that than my siblings did from him. But I think that having that positive attitude, even when things get tough, and they do, life is not easy to just go through, to get through. It doesn't feel good when you're going through it, but in reflection, it's like, okay, I can do this.
I know. I was going to say, it was coming up for me that I was waiting for you to say that it was your inner way of being, your state that has kept your body healthy. And it's, again, but that's where our power lies, is the way we perceive the world, what lens we look through. And we have such influence on the chemistry in here. Just like you said, we can go around being native and being, I just saw a little snippet, Dick Van Dyke's going to be turning one, and his was almost that exact thing, was he doesn't ever had hate in him. He never had that anger. He said was disapproving of certain behaviors or certain people, but he said, I never have had that intense hate. And he really attributes, because he said, I'm pretty lazy, even though he danced quite a bit in his career. But I just want to share that I think that's a really golden nugget right there that we're talking about today, is our power is lying within us to determine there's factors. I want to not help, have anybody feel like, oh, well, I have this, or I'm just talking about, we have that potential to support ourselves, to thrive as best as we can.
It's true. I never really thought about it that way, but that is true. If you have that in you, that has to have some physical impact on you, or emotional or mental impact, just by having that. But how do people, how can they get there if they're not there?
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't know.
Well, that's the work Scott and I do a lot of with people. I mean, this is exactly what I spend a lot of my sessions with people, like helping them to, reframe. One of my individuals this morning had an awakening yesterday when she realized she was hasn't acknowledged a certain component in her life for decades, and it's been festering inside. And we were able to align it, name it, notice it, and become aware of it yesterday. And I watched her in her session today, a lightness in her body, an ability to move that I've never seen before in her. And it's an incredible, when you start to really connect with our power on the inside, you have the ability to change the chemistry, and it literally influences how your body's doing physically, mentally, and emotionally. And what happens in here with the heart, the organs, and everything, they're taking on those emotions, or the lack thereof of expressing them, or whatever it may be. So that's the work we do. And that's what we just felt so inspired when Scott shared about you. I was like, this is exactly what we want more of in the world. We want people to be recognized, and to realize their light can shine bright, that the chaos in the world doesn't need to dim your light. And the more we can join together and support that collective consciousness, and that wave of gratitude that can be in all of us, even when it's tough.
Yeah, that is so beautiful. And that's exactly what we need for our administrators and our home office team, Scott. Because and I didn't know it could be maybe, and you can help us get there.
Yeah.
But we think people get discouraged, they get frustrated, with all of the hard stuff they have to do every day. They may have a checklist of things to do, but then someone calls in sick, and, a resident passes away, and a family member has, that's going on all day long for them. Plus, they have to run a business. They're the leader of the company.
Plus, they have other things going on in their personal lives. Don't forget.
Exactly.
All right.
Right.
I think that so much. I mean, I won't go too much into this, but you spark this somatic part that people don't really understand, that there's all kinds of parts of us that we need to address. All of them. when we deny certain parts of us, that shows up in ways that we can't always relate. It's like finding a water leak that is in your bedroom, but it's actually started in the garage. You would never think to start looking in the garage for a water leak, but that's how these things travel. They don't have a direct path. And so we like what you're doing for senior living and care partners, and what your daughter's doing and bringing this up. That's the kind of work we're doing for a different audience. It gets so exciting. That's how this podcast was born, was because we started talking. We're like, we have got to talk about this in a public way. Who knows how big we'll get, right? We have a fair amount of followers and we have a lot of downloads happening, but we have to talk about it. And I love that you're talking about it. And that's how you and I kicked off, was talking about it. So I've made some notes of some reading and some podcasts that I'm looking at based on what you've described. And I know Melissa's already taken in some really great ideas for helping with our journey, with the dementia pathway. And I just want to applaud you again for doing this.
I just want to get you and your son and your whole team and all the different assisted living places, because like you said, you walked in and they don't know how to interact and how to. And I would love to support you in any way we can to spread that model, because I'm living and breathing it every week when I walk into this building.
And I live with it every day in my house.
Right. And I'm like, I even feeling the pit of my stomach driving up there, because I'm navigating my parents and I'm trying to learn myself how to be with them and support them and not think this is just them waiting to die.
Yeah, right.
And I don't like that feeling. And my siblings, we want to try to help them, but we don't know that, we're all a little bit in avoidance because it's uncomfortable. And so we, try to navigate and figure it out.
You didn't know this was going to become a therapy session for you, did you? For us, when you're in a therapy, we didn't either.
Well, I think the message around dementia that should get out there is for family education, as far as especially validation techniques, because there are all these stages where it's not like what the Alzheimer's stages, but the way she talks about it is that there's malorientation, which is the first part where you know who you are, where you are, and you know each other, but something's starting to happen, and maybe you hide your purse because someone might steal it, or so you know who you are. And then it goes into the next stage where you don't know where you are, and you're kind of in a dream world, kind of. And then you go through a stage where you're not verbal anymore, and then you have to use hand emotions. So if they're doing that, we can tell people why. And then, of course, the last part would be the vegetative state. But in all of those different stages, you can make connections, and you can make a difference for them and for you. And I'll send you a couple of videos of Naomi File, Scott.
Thank you.
Share that. Yeah.
Appreciate
So if families could know that, and we could teach them that when they come into our communities, because we don't really do that. We can talk about it, but we have not yet started. Kind of like when you drop your kid off at kindergarten, you have to have orientation. Sort of, if you take your parents in, maybe you need orientation about what we do, how you can help us. So that's something that I'm working on right now to try to get that.
I do too. I love that a lot.
Yeah, because we were just kind of lost. We're just kind of,
Yeah, you talked about that. I know you said this was your first podcast. You're a natural. It'd be great for you to have a podcast. Maybe you and your daughter can do a podcast on these topics.
I would love it.
And I think it would, I think it would be great for your culture to have access to these in a podcast form. They don't have to be video necessarily, even just audible. So like a library of this information. It's there's a lot of potential here.
You've got so much in you. I hear it. I hear it. Just all these beautiful, connections you've made, and the ability to interact with people and make that connection. I feel inspired just listening to you, and I know there's more in you. I can feel it. Like you've got so much to share.
Jean, would you share the story you shared with me about walking in and the lady hugging you?
Yeah. So during COVID, my husband passed away, and I kept working because all of our communities had a lot of problems going on during COVID, of course. And I walked into community in Roseburg, Oregon, and I I always have this really good connection. For some reason, when they see me, it's like, hi, where have you been? I missed you. So I always can expect to get a big hug when I walk in. There's something that happens when I walk into a memory care. But this little lady came up to me and she gave me a hug and she said, oh, honey, my husband passed away too. So how she knew that, I don't know, except that intuitive grieving I might have been showing or something.
Yeah.
But I do think that there is, in Alaskan culture, when someone has dementia, they say that they are closer to God. So their mind is closer to God. And so I think there's, in other cultures, it's treated a little bit differently than the way we do, where we're kind of scared of it. And so, yeah, I think there's a lot of opportunity to educate everybody on this topic.
Usually.
And how to solve problems. My daughter does lots of podcasts. She has a lot of them for early childhood. And during COVID, after my husband died, it was still during COVID. I went for 3 months to the Hudson Valley where she lives, and we did our little talks, like 2-minute talks. And they're actually out there. If you Google Carol Garboden Murray, they come up. They're just 2-minute talks about like the therapeutic touch and all of those types of things that you do with children and you do with older people. So we've done a little bit of that, but we haven't really pushed it out anywhere.
Well, we'll be sure and connect those in our show notes.
Yeah.
Our amazing producer, Arvin, will put that on the show. So when I say we will put it in there, we don't do that. Yeah, we have someone else do that. So
maybe Carol and I should do a podcast. I don't know how to do the podcast, but that would be
very simple. You just, anything you need from us, we can help you, but we're probably not the podcast people, but
we can help you get started.
Yeah, we could help you. Jean, what is, we like to ask our guests, what is one leadership lesson that you've learned over your entire career that if you could impart to young leaders or established seasoned leaders, you would say to them?
Well, when I worked at Sacred Heart Hospital, I reported to the CFO, and he had known me for when I was working in different levels, and I became then the director of business services. And he told me, he said, Jean, now you are a supervisor, you're a director, and you have lost the right to turn green and foam at the mouth.
That was a hard thought.
Stay calm in the storm. So he gave me that. And I think that's actually, I don't get too upset with people. That's probably my nature anyway, but that is true. If you're a leader, you have to present yourself in a totally, of course you connect with people, but you can't go there.
Yes, that is one of the hardest things that emerging leaders have to face, especially if they're now the supervisor of the team they were once a colleague of, is understanding that is a shift that has to occur if you're going to be effective for the organizational goals and for yourself as a leader. So I love that so much. Jean, we appreciate you being here today. I can tell already we're going to have you back on. You've listed several things that I wrote down. I think that's an episode, and that's an episode. So if you're willing, we'll invite you back, and we'd love to talk to you again. And thank you so much for being here with us today.
Yes,
thank you.
You
take care.
Spread your message. So
we're gonna do our best to get the word out about what you do and how you do it. And thank you all for being here today and listening. And like I say, take care of each other and don't forget to take care of yourself. And we'll see you next time here on Rise and Thrive.
Namaste.
Thank you. Bye.
Thanks for tuning in to Rise and Thrive, a podcast by Vital Edge Wellness Coaching. If you found this episode meaningful, please rate, review, and share it with someone who might need it. For upcoming retreats and to join the Vital Edge Wellness community, head to vitaledgewellnesscoaching.com. Let's rise and thrive together.